Cool. Welcome everyone to the Human-Centered Design UAE Meetup. My name is Jonathan Steingiesser. Head of product design at a startup called Omnipresent. It's a fully remote startup. And we've got a great session for you today. The session is being recorded. So if you want to see any of our past sessions, or if you have to run off later and want to catch up, it's on Human-Centered Design UAE on YouTube. It's not just myself. We've got Katral-Nada here who's joining me, but there's also Greta and Assad in the background. So thanks to them. And we are on LinkedIn and Instagram. These are our tags if you want to continue the conversation or start the conversation. So it'd be great. In May, it's going to be 10 years of our meetup.
Yeah.
So we need to have post-Ramadan a really big meetup. If you've got ideas, we're very much welcome to hearing them. So quite exciting. And I'm just going to pass over to Hadeel now. Thank you so much to Atolye and all of the Atolye crew. Dave, Ari, Hadeel, amazing. We love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too, Jonathan. Hi everyone, welcome to Atolye. We're happy to have you. So I just wanted to quickly let you know who we are in case this is your first time. So Atolye is a community-powered consultancy. What that means is we have a membership-based community alongside our consultant firm. And yeah, we have full-timer members, over 200 members now, also remote and global members. We have many different themes that we host events on, which is learning and education, communities and belonging, spaces and environment, and sustainability. So if any of them tickle your pickle, pass by for upcoming events, you can check our Instagram page. We're part of a global collective called Q, so many other creative agencies are also a part of this collective, which is really cool. And we host in-person and hybrid events such as this lovely one. We host different jams, co-design circles, member-exclusive events as well. So yeah, follow us, check out our work, and if you feel like this is somewhere you'd like to belong to, then apply. So I'll hand it over to you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Hadeel. And yeah, thanks again to Atolye. So we've got a really great event tonight. And just before I introduce Nada, our events, we try to be as interactive as possible. So if you have a question, if you have a comment, you have a statement, if you disagree, I was saying to Nada before at our little rehearsal breakfast that we shouldn't all agree all the time as designers. So I'm going to disagree even if I agree now. Please, we want you to be involved, so jump in. This is many views to every topic. And a little bit about Nada. She's a seasoned UX strategist, a UX consultant, and dedicated the last 15 plus years to developing optimal UX for products across the web and mobile. She's worked not just in the region, but all over the world. Fundamentally believes that experience design can improve people's lives and transform businesses and industries and impact culture positively. And we met, I think it was almost 10 years ago. So it's she's also a good friend. So looking forward to this. Is there such a thing as the product design dream team? Every company wants to have high-performing design and product teams in place. And every designer, or everyone really, wants to be a part of such a team. But what makes up such a team? And how can you identify if you're set up for success or failure? That's going to be what we're going to be talking about. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your past, your present, and what you're hoping for the future?
Sure. Working? Okay. So hi everyone, thank you Jonathan for the introduction, and it's great to see so many people out here. Some people I've worked with in the past and some of my colleagues now. So a little bit of background on me. I was actually born in Abu Dhabi, but I grew up in Canada my whole life and moved to Dubai 12 years ago. when I came here for a 1-year stint to help a oil and gas company build their intranet from scratch on SharePoint back in the day. I finished the project within 4 months and decided I am not set up for in-house. I've been an agency and I need to get back into that. And I noticed that the things that I've been passionate about the most, back then it was called information architecture, just getting into the whole user experience design space was really needed. So what I ended up doing is starting my own consultancy and consulting across industries. So industry agnostic, being a consultant in this region for many years with many agencies and many different companies and organizations. And through my consulting about 5 years ago, I got introduced to the fintech space when a new digital bank wanted to open up. So I came in, helped them really strategize their product, and from there started working with them. So had the experience of actually building a digital bank for both retail and business consumers. And from there, I started working with a few other fintechs based in the UK, in Iraq actually, which is my home country where my family's originally from. And also, most recently, I'm now working with a Saudi-based fintech called Atolye Finance, based out of Riyadh. I work here in Dubai, fly over there once a month, and have a really great team of people who are really trying to design fintech for SMEs and micro businesses, which for those of you guys who are into what's happening in KSA right now, there is a huge drive to help support new SMEs and micro businesses within the country. So we're really looking at building products and services in the fintech space for those types of businesses. So that's a little bit about where I am, where I've been before, where I am now, and what I hope to talk to you guys today about is my experience working in these different organizations and being part of design teams, leading design teams, and what I feel has really resonated well with me, that works well, and what are the things that we need to watch out for when we are part of those design teams. But before we get started, I just kind of want to know from the people in the audience here, who here is part of a design team? Okay, who here leads a design team? Okay, great. So it's good that we have like a good mix of that. Now design, we're talking about design, but it could also be part of products, it could also be tech, so we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, and thanks for reminding me. One thing I forgot to mention, who here is looking for a job? Who is, so put your hand higher so everyone can see. This is what the meetup's about. Who's hiring at the moment, or a recruiter that is also looking to help make the marriage? So after, talk to each other. Hopefully you took note. If you're not sure on which camp, come chat to me or Nada. We probably know quite a few other people in the room, so happy to make the connection. Back to you before we get started, or are you happy for us to kick off? I think one thing that we probably all have a different idea on that I wanted to start with is just a definition. What is, in your view, a design dream team?
Okay. So before I get into what is a design dream team, what is a dream team? So I guess maybe the definition will be very different for a lot of people, but a dream team is a group of people who like to work together, who enjoy being together, right? So when you're part of a team that enjoys being together, you're part of a team that is aligned, you're part of a team that is connected, that's cohesive, and communicates well. But most importantly, you're part of a team that trusts each other. At the basis, you have trust with the people that you're part of your team. Now, for design teams and for designers, I speak on behalf of myself and many designers that I know, we tend to be, or describe ourselves as empaths. Empaths are people who really, it could be quite sensitive, but really feel. They get impacted by those around them because they tend to put their feet in other shoes and kind of see things from their perspectives on a regular. As an empath, we care about the people around us. The energy of those around us impact our energy as well. So when you're part of a design team, if you don't have those elements in place of trust and communication and collaboration and cohesiveness, you would tend to be more impacted by a team that doesn't have those elements in them. So for a designer, being part of a team that gives you that energy is really important and helps you kind of see that, okay, I'm actually in a place where I feel comfortable enough to potentially call it a dream team. But we'll talk a little bit more, I think, as we go along, what actually is a design team and what do they actually need to have in place to really help them get to this kind of energy.
To that level.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are some of the elements that then can help us to create some of what you've been talking about? Like, how can we design that dream team, regardless of it being design or otherwise?
Well, first of all, obviously acknowledging that these elements, like this culture needs to be in place, and that culture needs to be created through purpose. Making sure that there is a purpose to the team, there is a purpose to the organization, and ensuring that that purpose and the values of that purpose aligns back to the individuals that you're bringing into that team. So there is a lot of focus being put on the hiring managers when they are bringing people into the team to ensure that alignment, and also on us who are trying to join a team and ensuring that we also match that alignment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in depth, and just kind of reiterate that, because I think it's an important message that you constantly have to think about. And I think that applies to everything in our lives, whether it's your friends, your networks, people around you. You have to constantly consider, do the values match? Do I get a good exchange with the people that I'm around with? And you actually have control over that. You can't control others, but you can control yourself, and you can control whether or not you want to be part of that sort of team or network together.
So you're saying you need that buy-in from the top, and so you feel that's something that you can look out for, like if someone looking for a move, or if they're unhappy with their current state, you need to
ask the right questions to understand if you do have a fit within a specific organization or team, and that team, that hiring manager, that organization needs to also put that in place and be very clear about that, so that you can understand the connection if it actually exists.
Okay. And if we were to take it further then to a design dream team,
okay,
what makes
okay,
so
a design team, right? I'm not going to get into the team structure, right? Because it's semantics, especially in our space. What do you call people within your team? But just so everyone knows, when we talk about design teams, I was speaking to a content designer earlier as well. A design team, when we talk about design teams in today's context, it could be anyone from a UX designer, experience designer, service designer, UI, product. All of you combined can be part of a design team. But what is extremely important that you need to think about is a design team is a team that leads and is led by innovation and customer centricity. A design team is a team that is empowered by the business to lead and be led by innovation and customer centricity. So if you are part of design teams that allow you to lead and be led by innovation and customer centricity, that's amazing, that's awesome, I salute you. And if you're not, that's okay. We're going to talk about some tactics, I think, today about how maybe you can introduce that to your organization. But that is kind of the key that you need to remember, is that you're not following, you're not being told what to design, you're given the opportunity to lead, and lead by innovation and customer centricity.
And so where do you see then that those disciplines lie in terms of, is it product, is it experience, is it service, is it all of the above? Like, how does that interrelate to having that dream team, like,
Look, I think it's at the top. So it has to come, you have to get the buy-in from the top. They have to have that belief within the organization to empower. Remember I said that it's a team that is empowered to lead by innovation and customer centricity. Of course, we as designers have the obligation to maybe sometimes prove that, show the value of that, and there's lots of different ways to do that. But I think the most important thing is that we need to also speak up, because a lot of the time what ends up happening in organizations is that as designers, we end up following business needs, we end up following product needs, we end up following technology needs. I'll give you an example, especially for those who are in early stage startups. You're smaller teams, and sometimes you're dealing directly with the CEOs and the founders of the company. And I've been in this situation many times. But how many times have you had a founder, for those who are in early stage startups, come up to you and say, oh, I think you need to change the design of this page or this app because the investor said that our competitor is doing it and it'll look a lot better. Or you need to change this because I wasn't able to, use the app properly. Or my daughter said this, or my mother said this. And these are the founders coming to you as a designer and telling you this. I don't know, show of hands, have you guys experienced this before? A lot of people. I have, definitely. And it's like, okay, great. So you have to obviously respect these people, these founders who built this company that you're part of. But how do you reply to something like that? If your reply is, okay, yeah, sure, I'm on it. I'm gonna get it done. Don't worry. You're already giving up that space where you want to be that designer that leads by innovation and customer centricity, because you're already saying yes to these quick asks from a founder who has an emotional attachment to their product. These are early stage kind of startups I'm talking about. Other, media scale-ups or corps, you still get that. You get that from managers, you get that from other people in the business. And you have to always remember that we need to take it back. So we need to have that rhetoric. We need to have that, constant push for the customer at everything that we do. So just a simple way of how do you reply to that could be, oh, great idea, really interesting. We'll do some research and I'll get back to you on how that sounds. We'll run some experiments and I'll get back to you on how that sounds. But don't always agree to something right away. It's easy to do so. You want to please them. You might actually think it's a good idea, actually. You might even have it already in your roadmap. But even if you do, reply to them with the response of, we will look into that, we will test that, we will validate that need before we accept it right away.
And what are some other tactics to get that senior leadership buy-in?
Okay.
To move from, maybe being led by other things to design a product.
So as designers, there is something that obviously we are so proud of and we love so much, right? It is our outputs, right? Our outputs is our personas, okay? Our outputs are our research reports, our recommendation documents, our workflow diagrams, our Figma files, can't forget those, of course, and our beloved design system. These are our outputs that we're doing on a regular basis, using on a regular basis. We can't go without them. And we speak about them all the time and we showcase them all the time. We're so proud of them, and as we should be. But when you go to senior leadership and this is all you're showing them, then, oh, that's great, go, good, looks good, keep going. But if you don't start having the conversations with your senior leaderships about the outcomes of what you provide and you bring to the table, then you'll never end up becoming part of those strategy conversations. What are the outcomes? The outcomes are, how can I make our customers, our humans that we're designing for, lives better? How is it that what we do makes their life better? How are we bringing intrinsic value back to the lives of those customers? Again, because we want to lead by customer centricity. We want to bring back the customer at the center of everything that we do. So we need to bring outcomes into the conversation as part of what we offer to them, to the organization. So outcomes need to be crafted. We craft outcomes, and then we talk about it. We talk about it to anyone who wants to hear about it, because we need promoters within the organization. We need people to say, yes, the design team is working on the outcome of improving the lives of unbanked, blah, 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 customers, if you're working in the fintech space, which always comes to my mind right away. We are looking at how we can improve the lives. We talk about it. We get promoters within the business to also talk about it, and then we execute on it. And that should be part of the conversation that we take to leaders. And then the outputs kind of is the proof of why and how we do that. But don't focus so much on the outputs. Of course, you're going to be doing them, and we're great at them, but that's not all we do. And we need to get the organization to understand that.
And that's great. Now, how do we then scale that to the rest of the organization? How do we make it not just about the experiment or the one example or the one team that is the alpha team, but how do you move towards a, not just other maybe product teams, but the wider organization?
Yeah, definitely.
Being led.
Well, the thing is, design teams need to step out of just product and tech. They need to really focus on the end-to-end experiences that the organization they're part of deals with. End-to-end is offline and online experience. End-to-end touches upon different customer touch points across that journey. And that would mean that you would be part of other groups within the business. So, for example, if I think about the business that I'm part of right now, Raida, we have different business units across the organization, from sales teams to credit teams to collection teams to HR and all kinds of different business units, and we need to have those conversations across the organization, showcasing our value back to them, rather than just focusing very specifically on just one single product journey that we're working on. So at the moment you start expanding your offering across the organization, considering that end-to-end journey, you start to get other people in the business involved. And you start to get to showcase those outcomes to them. And you start to get them involved in being part of those outcomes, which hopefully are outcomes that help improve the lives of the humans that your organization exists for.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about high-performing teams? Like, how can we create them? How can we nurture them? And again, if move beyond those quick wins to really performing at that level consistently.
So quick wins, before I get into high, because you mentioned quick wins. We constantly hear about quick wins in an organization. Just want to make the comment that quick wins never solve problems. Quick wins are just quick ideas that you can do. They're not based on strategy, research, or experiments. So just always be cautious of those quick wins, because they're
tactical.
Yeah, very tactical, and they never actually solve the problem at hand, right? High-performing teams are teams that have strong partnerships. High-performing design teams are teams that have strong partnership with their product partners, with their technology partners. And I use the word partners strongly. It's a partnership that you need to create with your product and tech teams. The three of you together have and share responsibility and share the also outcomes of what you're trying to achieve. So you need to really be aligned with them, have those values shared among the teams. And those really would return to you high-performing teams, because you end up being aligned. And what ends up happening as well with these partnerships is sometimes you will have overlap, and overlap is great. Overlap allows you to really validate what you're doing and really allow you to connect with your partners. So, actually I was talking to my colleagues today. They're here today, Bilal and George in the background. And we were talking about some of the overlap that's happened between product and design teams for a refinancing experience that we have at Araida, where the design team went through a design thinking workshop with different members of the business, and we were looking at how we can re-innovate and build a really amazing refinancing journey that that has no stops, whether it's tech or product or what the existing experience is. Really looking at that innovation level, and the product team was actually doing a similar kind of exercise with all the right partners, and really looking at how to understand the current process and automate and digitize that. So then when we came together and we had these two workflows, one that was more aspirational, one that was more realistic, coming together, we were able to find that actually there are some things from the aspirational element that could be added to what was focused on in the realistic approach that was the today approach. And I think even just that understanding, because the two teams did something separately but then came together afterwards, makes you again, share responsibility, realize that you're both on the same team, working on for the same sort of efforts. So I'm really a big supporter of that, of the rework that could happen within these teams. But that's how the partnership has to come to play, and the conversation has to include all the parties. I'm not saying that we're doing everything perfectly. We're obviously looking at how we can improve and build high-performing teams, and the hope is to get there. And I'm sure everyone here has that sort of hope and need and want. But there's some tactics that you can think about when you are coming together with these different groups.
Nice. I've kind of dived in, and I haven't involved the audience as much as I said I would. Is there any questions before we kind of keep going? Anyone wants? Yeah, great.
A moment ago, you talked about design teams being lead and being led by innovation and customer centricity. The second part I got it, but the first one, if you could dive a little bit into the innovation part, what do you mean by that?
Great question. So innovation part, and actually the person you're sitting right next to here is probably a really good guy to maybe to actually answer that question, because he leads innovation for banking. But the innovation part is really the part where you're out there looking and trying to find different solutions for things that we might not have ever thought about. You know, there's always like an answer to a problem, but if you actually keep pushing and keep questioning and keep asking in different ways, you might come up with ideas and solutions that you've never thought about. Innovation is taking that next step forward. It's experimenting with those ideas as well, and testing and seeing if they work, if they can actually be part of what you're trying to build. So that part has to be, if you have a design team that is led by that and is empowered to conduct these experiments of innovation, you will end up maybe finding some cool little nuggets that differentiate you from your counterparts, that allow you to build something that's different. The thing is, in this region, and I've been in this region for a while, there are a lot of amazing, innovative businesses and companies that come out. But there are also a lot of copycats, right? And it's not a bad thing, because our region also needs a lot of similar, apps and, businesses that we see happening across different countries, and we want to just kind of iterate and copy that. But we always have to remember that customers here are different. People here are different. The environment that we're in is different. So we can't just copy. We have to always be thinking about how to do something a bit different, how to innovate on what we have. And if you're not innovating, if you're not thinking of the next big thing within what you try to offer, you're going to fall behind your competitors. And you're not going to be solving the needs for your customer. You're not going to be bettering their lives anymore. Someone else probably will. Do you want to add anything to that, Shoaib?
Let's keep the conversation going.
Bilal also has a comment about it.
I would just add, and it may be oversimplified, but it's innovation really, the essence of it is perfecting the art of asking the question why. And the moment you get that balance right, where you keep on asking until you get to the real reason of doing something for, that's when you know that you're innovative and you're doing the right reasons.
I think we have a comment as well in the back.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe use the mic because we're recording. Yeah.
Thanks. So just a bit of background, so I've led product and design teams, I've led divisions as well, and you're really good at what you said. Just a few points that I'd like to add to what you said.
Please do.
So you find what's a really great team, a really kick-ass team, right? For me, it's two words. It's trust, which you said, and value. So the way I see it is a dream team is one which trusts and values each other in the pursuit of a common goal.
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of the second point, in terms of you said what's really important in design team. I think given your background, it's understandable. But there are two important points when I talk to my design team. It's scale and global, because your customers are going to grow And if you look at the customer journey at the current point of time without scale, you're going to result in significant rework. And if you don't think global, it inhibits sort of speed to market, time to market, time to value. So I thought I covered everything really well, but I just thought I'd add this.
No, those are excellent points, definitely. Any more comments?
Yeah, we got one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. I am from Colombia and I run team alignment workshops. And I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get a team aligned? Like, did you use something, or did you just like the right people came in and everything was perfect from the start? Like, how did you manage to align things up?
Yeah.
And also, we'll be here till Monday, so if anyone needs a team alignment workshop, do that with you.
Okay, great.
Nice, free plug, love it.
So I think actually what we just heard from our colleague in the back, alignment is ensuring that the purpose of the team is identified and defined, and everybody understands that they are here together for that same purpose. So if you have that identified, and everyone within the team is build like their OKRs based on that. They can also understand what their contribution is to the achievement of that purpose. That's when you can really have the alignment, because you're all in it for a common goal. And if you all have the same common goal, there's no room for disagreements. Of course, disagreements are good, but there's no room for we're doing different things, because at the end of the day, I understand where my partner is coming from in product, or my partner in tech is coming from, because we have a common goal to reach this purpose. And that needs to be constantly iterated, constantly reminded within the team and the organization as a whole.
I wanted to also take a crack at that one. So I've been very fortunate. A year ago, I joined a startup with one designer, and I was told, go nuts, build a team. Which is awesome, right? It's a dream. The dream, unfortunately, comes to economic situation. But there are probably two words, I think. So one method that we tried, I've done it before, not many times, from a conference I went to a while ago, by a guy by the name of Russ Unger, who has a UX team charter. So the product design team charter, which is an exercise you run with your team, and just creating that voice for everyone to have. Who are we? What do we stand for? What do we not stand for? What do we do? What do we want to be known as? What is the persona of this team? And in the end, kind of symbolically, and obviously a bit hard to do digitally, but you can do it, everyone signs this to say, yes, I agree, we're aligned, this is who we are. And then when new team members come in, you give them an opportunity. Is there anything missing? Anything you want to add? Etc. The other point I want to make on that one is transparency. And I really believe that's very much my style. It's sometimes difficult and challenging, because you don't want to create too much transparency and create confusion or anxiety in uncertain times. But I think giving that transparency to not just your team, but the managers within your team, to say, look, this is where we are. It's not an easy time, but I'd like your help to create the future. I don't have all the answers. This is the information we have from the top, and sharing more maybe sometimes than you're allowed or given the ability to share. And I think that's how you build the trust, but it's also how you create that alignment. Yes, you want to add something? Do we have the room mic? You gotta turn it.
I wanted to ask about hiring. Let's say if you're going to join a design team, what sort of questions should you ask, say, the hiring manager to assess if this is the right team for you to join?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it was part of my takeaways, because I was going to have 2 takeaways to give back,
Great segue.
to you guys. So actually, I wrote them down so I don't forget anything. So just give me 1 second.
Did
Okay.
you ask him to ask that?
No, I didn't. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start because there was 2. I wanted to give some takeaways for hiring managers, and then also for the rest of us who are applying, interviewing, joining organizations. Okay. So for hiring manager, the questions that you should be looking for asking is, when you're hiring, you should be hiring for values. We talked about that earlier, making sure that you know what the values are for the organization and you're able to communicate that and ensure that whoever you're hiring matches that. You're hiring for ambition. You look for people who are ambitious that can help you take the product, the team where you want it to go. You hire for potential as well. I mean, that's something that I always love to look for. I love looking for people who are hungry and have potential. They don't have to have everything right away, but you know that the potential is there, because in our space and in our design space, you want people who are constantly learning, constantly looking up for new tactics, new ways, attending events like this, really, improving themselves, because it's not, you don't just go to school and you become a designer. It's a constant learning experience. So you hire for potential, and you hire for purpose. Okay. And as someone who's looking, again, it's just going to go back to what we're looking for when we're trying to hire. You want to be applying the questions you want to be asking your organizations, and what are their values? And you need to be very honest with yourself. Do your values match the values of that organization? Sometimes we're so excited. We want the job. We want to work for this business. We're looking for a job. We've been out of a job. I understand it can get difficult. But it's more difficult joining a company and then a few weeks or months later, you find out that you're completely unaligned and you end up leaving, and that also doesn't really look good for your career. So really, be honest with yourself. Do your values match the values of that organization? And I hope they know their values as well. That's a very good one too, is when you ask them their values, they're able to answer that question for you. Okay? Ask them if they support your growth in your career as well. You are giving a lot to the business that you're working with. You're giving 8 to 9 hours of your day. And you want to make sure that this is a company that also is going to give back to you. It's going to give back to your growth. It's going to support your career as well. So how do they do that? It's easier to say, do you support my growth? How do you support my growth? What do you do for me to help me grow my career? How can you help me develop? So really importantly, to ask those questions around that. And then, of course, ask about team dynamic. Okay, so how does a design team work with the product team? How does a design team work with the engineering team? How does the design team work with the rest of the business units of that organization? And make sure you hear the word partnership in there. You want to make sure that it's a partnership. It's not one following the other, that kind of thing. You want to make sure that you're part of a company that supports partnership with these entities. And then for a lot of us in this region who are working for early stage startups, and even if you are working for a scale up, I would always ask about who the founders of that business are, and why did they start the business? Did they start the business because they want to make an improvement in humans' lives? Did they? Is that their reason for being? Does that match why you would be interested? Does that help you feel like you're part of something bigger? Always ask about the founders, ask about their reason for being there. And we've seen it in this region. A lot of the time, founders are in it to sell and leave. That means they're not going to really care about your growth and support you and grow your teams, So we've seen it a lot happening in this region. We hear about it all the time. So really make sure you dig deep into who the founders are for early stage startups. For scale ups, look at who's on the board. Look at who are the investors who invested into that scale up. Those are companies that are Series A, B, C. And then for corporates, I would look at the structure of the organization and where design fits and that kind of thing for larger corporates.
Yeah, and I think, this is also, I agree, it's a trap we all fall into. We fall in love with the idea of the job, but we don't quite know what that is yet. And it's really important, especially in the beginning when you're seeing how invested are you in this process, but also especially at the end, before you sign and you're like, I'm in, speaking, who will I report to? Who do they report to? These are mistakes I've made. And then I'm like, well, this business really gets it. They know what's designed, they know what is product, the product they've designed it, and then it's just, feature city, like ship it, ship it, ship it. And that's if that's not something you want to do, then it's probably not the place for you. And you're probably going to invest a lot of time and energy. So make sure, I think especially in this market when you don't have trust your gut. I think that's the advice I've been giving to a lot of people lately. Like, you've got amazing self-worth, you've got amazing skills, and just make sure you keep your options open and don't just dive into something that you're going to regret, quite quickly. So making sure you're seeing that vision, and even sometimes when they tell you all the right things, at least, again, trusting your gut, like it sounds like this is a business that's aligned and moving in the direction of where I want to move.
Your intuition is a superpower.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
And you need to evoke it or it just goes silent. So always really focus on that intuition, that voice in your head. It's there for a reason. Listen to it.
Do we have the other mic, Hadeel? Oh, thank you. Do you mind just moving it? Thanks, man.
I think you may have partially answered some of this question, but a two-pronged question. I think the first question I have is, do you think as a lifespan for like a dream team, one of the members who opt into that dream team, right? So entering into a dream team, how long should I stay in this place before that next step? And I think that the second thing is like with thinking about growth, and most of us have design or have design in our time for a long time. How do you kind of say to yourself, I'm going to move into a role that doesn't already have design in it? Whether it's product manager, whether it's a title that isn't design, but you have to kind of work in a human-centered way. What's your sort of thoughts around giving those people the push they need to explore what's out there after that? May I ask a short question as well? Since the mic is here, right? Yeah. So the question was around in terms of building a dream team. You mentioned very nice qualities and traits around trust and culture and all that stuff. But I think the one thing that I may have not heard was the results that the designers will produce. Are we taking for granted that the results will be produced, or being results like team of the team that delivers, so to say? Yeah. Asking as a founder. Thank you.
Yeah. No, those are extremely important. Those are the outcomes that we were talking about. So the outcomes are the results that we need to ensure the design team can definitely be part of. So you're asking as a founder, which is great because you want to have those designers as part of your strategy. You want to have them helping you consider what your strategy is and actually identifying and crafting the outcomes of what they do to help your customers that you're designing for, you're building for, have better lives or do better things with it. So just quick answer for that. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to probably ask you to repeat them.
I'll repeat the question.
They're really good questions.
Really good one. You got me thinking as well about various different things. You go first, though. Is there a lifespan to a dream team? Mm-hmm. And should you stay or should you go? At what point, right?
It's a hard one to answer because but something we just said right before your question is you need to listen to your intuition. A lot of us designers, like we mentioned earlier, we're empaths. We feel a lot. You get to a point where you know that am I providing value back to this team, and is this team providing value back to me? The team can be a design dream team, and everything can be in its place, right? But you personally, and this is what I would do for myself, do I feel like my presence here is giving value back to those humans that I'm meant to be designing for? And I'll be very candid. The last company I left, was because I asked myself that question and my answer was no. I am not in a place anymore where I am giving back value to this business and it's not returning value back to me. And that's when I left that company without another job. And that was good. That was okay for me. I was happy with that decision because my intuition told me it was time to go. And that would be the advice I'd give anyone. I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but this is what I would do. And the team can continue and can grow and the company can do well and continue that and you can be really happy for them, but you have to be happy within yourself and the team that you're with. So that's how I answer the first question. How would you tackle it?
Yeah, let's stick to the first one. You got me thinking to my first dream team, what made me fall in love, the opposite of your answer with client side, not agency. I came from an agency where I thought I would be part of all these amazing people, but they were all so busy and we didn't have that role in their different clients in Melbourne. I did hear a hint of Aussie accent there. So. I joined MYOB, a accounting software company in Melbourne in 2015 with 9 designers. 3 years later, when I left, there were 42 designers. Amazing. Best company and best team I ever worked for. A lot of the values of the company that everyone had to memorize and live and breathe. And in every meeting, they were asked, how are you living the values? What's an example? That's how it was genuine. It wasn't just like, yeah, those are values on the wall. But at a certain point, once you have too many humans, that magic, that dream team magic, like, yes, you could still say you're a dream team, but the feeling as an individual was kind of lost because it was just too big. And it was maybe too centric to one city and not another city. So I think there is a limit of how many kind of humans you can have. But also, like yourself, sometimes life happens or intuition happens. And yes, you should definitely find the right time to go. But I think that seed is kind of planted in you. So maybe it's then you're an ambassador to create that dream team magic wherever you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered it.
Exactly.
Testing the memory now. The second question was actually also a good one. It's a challenge. It's probably, we're going to get you to do the next meetup, topic on this, which is you hit a wall as a designer and not a huge number of chief design officers out there, right? Unfortunately. How do you know when you should make the move into product?
It was about what do you like when you're calling yourself? What are your titles?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that lines if I reframe it as well. But yes, there is a natural ceiling in certain organizations where the highest paid design individual is this level. And then if I wanted to move to a role which has some pay and responsibility, I might have to then move to something that's not called design, but then like the hiring managers kind of like look at a resume that's like design. Do you know how to do this kind of thing? So it's kind of like this titling and sort of like how do you know as an individual, even as a hiring manager, when like you should take a chance on someone who hasn't come from that place field. Sorry,
it's a good thing to think about, and it's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer for it. I just know personally, I've never been one to really care for titles, especially in our space. I mean, I started off my career, I was an information architect, and then I was a user experience designer, then I was a CX designer, I was a head of product design, head of, yeah, so and every organization is going to call it something different depending on how they structure and their funding and the other teams that are involved, of course. If you have C-level CPOs, if you have a chief design officer, it's going to be dependent on that sort of structure of the organization. I would take it back to answering the same way I answered the first question. You need to know, you as yourself, what you provide, what you bring to the table. And that's all that matters. When you're applying for that role that's going to be better paid, or when you're applying for a role, you ask yourself, what am I going to be doing in this role? What is my outputs and my outcomes in this role? And this is how I'm going to bring value back. So call me whatever you want to call me, but this is what I'll be doing, and this is what I hope to do, this is what I hope to grow. This is the way I see it. I never really cared for names, but there's many people that do and many organizations that do. So does anyone else maybe have a way to answer that?
I might just go first, and then we'll pass over to your colleague,
let's see
I know many people have made that move. I've actually thought about it myself because I'm kind of in that ceiling, and it does not. If you look at The organization I'm in, there's 5 heads of product. There's only 1 head of product design. And in many organizations, you don't even have a head of design. You just got designers reporting into product or whatever. I think my advice would be the same as someone who's just starting out and doesn't have a portfolio. Do it. Do it inside your organization. Take on so much of the tooling and the processes overlap. Be that product manager. Do that. Add that to your portfolio. And be creative on LinkedIn. You can lie, whatever. Nada's title was head of product and design. I mean, it does exist, right? You can say I'm head of, or I'm just design, but I'm also doing consumer product, or I'm doing or put that as a sub-bullet point if you feel bad about changing your title. But if you've actually done it, you can put in your portfolio, talk to it, then you're walking the mile as well.
It's now head of design and experience.
There you go. I want to pass to your chief product officer, is that right?
Yeah.
George.
That was very luxurious. So let me try to answer that question from being 3 times CTO and 4 times CTO. So I would say I've been the top many times. So you have this pressure. There's no more room for you. Yes. In reality, that's not what happens when you get there. You're gonna feel 2 things. You're gonna feel you're the dumbest person in the room because you are far from what you really know, and then you really need to know other things that are wider. For example, the business, the industry. It's not when you are, for example, PM, you have your craft. When you're CPO, you don't have the craft anymore. You have to explain for the whole corporation what you're doing. So it's another skill you need to develop. So this is one thing. So you have to learn, and the companies, they change a lot. The industries, they change a lot. The way you motivate people changes a lot. Your team changes. You have to keep learning, and find a way to motivate your team. So that's one thing. And just a side comment. Just a comment about what designs do. Design builds passion. I use that word. I would like to hear more about the passion. You're not here to solve problems. PM solve the problems. You are here to make your users, customers, your company fall in passion for design. Close the codes. Then the second thing is when you're in the top, you never know if you are doing the right move or not. You only know that when you look backwards. Okay, so try to avoid thinking too much to the future. That only cause anxiety. Focus on the present. Focus on what you need to solve. Focus on your team, how they are, what's their motivation, what they are going to. Focus on the people around you, connect them. I used to say in an organization, a product organization, product in general, people, teams that build product for customers, that the engineers are the body, the PMs are the mind, I would say the mind, I would say the brain, and the designers are the heart. So practicing a little bit more of the heart. You're the only one that can capture the passion of your customer and the passion of the organization and transform that into something tangible for them. That's it.
Thank you, George.
Can we pass the mic that way? Pass Gareth and Harry.
So I just thought I'd add, more color from more tactical point of view. What has been said is great from a heart and brain point of view, but from a tactical point of view, I think there's a way to solve that problem. So given if you say that trust and value is given meaning, your teammates trust you, they value what you do, that's good. Then the problem is a two-dimensional problem of volume and variability. So the question I've asked myself in my career, with daily changes, is do I want to do more of the same and scale it up, right? So more of the same in terms of volume. So a bigger company, a bigger role, a bigger what have you, but more of the same. Or do I want to increase variability? Do I want to go horizontal? That's for me the way to decide this problem at a tactical level. So let's take the specific example of product design versus product management. Product design sits in one pillar or the four pillars of product management. Product management has to do with market audit, concept prioritization and strategic planning, product vision, and evangelization. It sits there. Now the question is, as you grow in your design career, do you feel like you would like to do the kind of thing and have the kind of attributes of those other three pillars? If the answer is yes, just go for it. Don't think twice. So in my own case, I used to be a programmer when I started. I ended up in sales. I went to marketing, and trust me, each of these has made me a better product person because I have a commercial appreciation. I have an appreciation of the width in addition to the depth. So I think just to summarize, beyond the brain and heart, which Ms. Bill said, which is absolutely true, it's a question of volume and variability. If your team members trust you and they value what you do, I think that's how I would solve it.
Nice, thank you. Any other questions? Robert, haven't heard from you for a while. Opinions, thoughts? What makes a great product design thinking?
Actually, I want to reflect that question. And what do we think the perfect outcome, not output, output we know a good output looks like, but outcome of a dream team in an organization. What does it look like?
You want to go first?
I mean, I think I touched on it, and I'm just going to repeat it because I stick to what I said before, is that an outcome that's extremely important is one where we are bettering the lives of the humans that we're designing for. We're doing something to better their lives, because if we're not bettering their lives, why would they pay us for whatever we're offering them? Why would they engage with us? So we need to make sure that whatever we're doing in our outcomes is directly impacting their life. That's going back to humanizing it.
Yeah, and I think it's also to do with our life. So we're bettering our life. Like we are living the ideal, meaningful life because we're doing that. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Also, I think, so that's the final outcome. I think the immediate outcome when we have built a solid design team is that the culture itself around the design team start to be more user-centered, start to be more on partnership side, start to treat designers as how are we thinking about the heart as well as the body as well as the head. So that's the 100%. Circle of control, which is anything Figma, anything Miro, anything design thinking workshops. The circle of influence is start to make PMs and engineers doing more research. And sometimes we are the ones saying that no, we don't really need to do research. This thing has been validated.
So no, man.
So actually, this is the thing that I'm usually
definitely
about when designers start wearing different hats that not necessarily by brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the partnership. It's the partnership aspect of those three that come together. Definitely, great points.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that earlier. So thanks for bringing it up again. It's when we've got sales running experiments, when we've got other teams saying, well, before we launch this, let's do a small pilot. Like, wow, great. And then being that influencer, being that advisor, and empowering them to do it, and not saying I'm too busy, leave me alone, let's do Figma.
100%, yeah.
Any other questions? We just conscious of time. We also want to allow plenty of networking time, and everyone that was looking and is hiring to talk to each other as well. We've got a couple of future meetups here, right? There's quite a few people. We've got, I don't know where Jane went, but there's a new service designer in the country. I want her to meet you later. There's a few design leaders I'm looking at. So our calendar for this year is quite empty. We got a few ideas. We got something we're looking at after Ramadan, but please chat to us if you want to speak or you want to be part of a panel or whatever. Like, let's make it happen. Thanks, everyone. Snuck in. Final question.
It's less of a question and more of a reflection on the whole conversation today. I find design and being a designer more of a mindset than just a role or just a function or just a title. Of course, design teams play a very important function in whatever we're doing, but we can approach a lot of the work that we do thinking and approaching it like a designer, putting that customer first, putting that innovation-centered mindset first. And so once we're able to get the rest of the team we work with in partnership to understand why we're doing things a certain way, I think half the battle is won there. And so understanding the mindset aspect is key to winning.
Nice. Great way to end. Mindset. Thank you so much, Nada, for your wisdom and sharing, and thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, guys.